Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Business in Calgary podcast powered by Sonic Coaching. I'm your host, Oliver Basner. And as I was reflecting on our last episode of the year, I wanted to put something very special together for all of you. So what I've done is I've gone through our interviews of the last year, and we've had some amazing guests on the show. And I've got some clips that I'm going to share with all of you with some of the highlights that were my personal favorites. And so these guests have come from different industries. They've come from all over the place: nonprofit, oil and gas, real estate, restaurants, and so many more industries. And as we're wrapping up 2025, I just want you to be aware. I'm just going to share a few of my favorite nuggets of wisdom, but by all means, these aren't all the nuggets. Guests have shared so much wisdom and shared so much knowledge and things they've learned and, the mistakes they've made over the last year. And so, if any of these catch your eye, so to speak, as you're listening to the clips, by all means, feel free to go back and listen to that particular episode. So let's jump right in. So I'm going to start with episode number 2 that we did. It was a gentleman named Mike Broadfoot. That's probably not a name that you're not likely to be familiar with. And the reason for that is, first of all, Mike doesn't usually give interviews. So I was quite honored when we reached out to him and he said yes, that he would be delighted to sit down with us and share some of his business wisdom. Just to give you a little bit of an idea on his background, he's the founder, early stage investor of many companies in the energy sector, B2B software, medical devices, financial services, and even property development. So Mike's got a broad experience, broad depth of knowledge. And so, one of the things that I really remember that Mike stressed was the value of lifetime learning. And so lifelong learning, really aligns with, one of my personal values of continuous learning. And so here's the clip. Tell us a little bit about mistakes, because, you don't get it perfect all the time. And
No.
so how do you, we've all got that little voice in our head that beats us up, probably more so than anybody around us is going to beat us up. How do you deal with that when you have a failure, and how do you keep pushing forward and moving forward? Like, what's kept you going over the years?
I think because failure is mostly about learning. I don't quit easy, so there's been a few times when I should have recognized the failure earlier, and I'm trying to always keep that in my mind now. But I've certainly had failures where I've sort of misjudged how a market or an industry actually works, and we got so far into it, and then, wow, we are not going to change gravity here. We are not going to change how this industry operates and be successful, and then having to back away from that. I think on the people side, you need to be really quick, and really quick's not the right word. You need to be really forthright and purposeful about whether or not you've made a mistake in terms of a role somebody's in or in a hire. And I've been in quite a few situations where we put somebody in a role where they didn't succeed. And you need to pretty quickly I think, work through that and try and turn it from being a mistake, which it was, to just a learning.
Yeah.
So how do you turn mistakes into learning, I guess, is...
So you don't repeat the same mistake.
So you don't make the same mistake, and so if you're early enough, you can course correct. Either course correct on the person's career or course correct on getting the team working better.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting? Have you ever found in life, if you don't learn from the mistake the first time, there's an opportunity to repeat it? I always joke about that.
Yeah, that's for sure. That is for sure. Yeah.
It'll just come back to haunt us again, right? So may as well learn the lesson the first time around.
Yes.
Yeah, I really like that, because I know it can be so hard when you make that mistake, or you've invested so much time or money into something, you fail, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work, and then you're beating yourself up. Right. And I like what you said, which is, look at it as a learning moment. What did I learn from this? How can I move forward beyond this mistake?
Yep.
And I think, too, when you take that approach of looking at it as this was a learning experience, you're not hesitant to act in what the best action is for both you and the other people involved, because you're trying to learn from it. You're trying to do better. And I think that sometimes when we think there's a failure or a mistake that we've made, sometimes we kind of let our ego get a hold of us, and then we try and backpedal, and we make it last longer than it should have. And then that's when we end up hurting our relationships, and those choices hurt other people.
Well said.
So
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
I like that, the learning.
How important is curiosity?
Well, I'm biased on that because I'm a really curious person. I just interested to learn the why. So I'm biased to thinking it's very important. I guess it depends what your goal is. But if your goal is to be successful in business, then I think curiosity is a really core element of success.
Yes.
Because you have to be interested in how can things be done differently, how can they be done better, and you also have to be interested in the why. Why is that person behaving like this? Why do things have that kind of economic model attached to them? And then parse them apart to understand the why.
Okay, the next episode I wanted to share with you was episode 4 that we did, and it was the lady's name was Hilary Folks. She was awarded the Calgary Influential Women in Business Lifetime Achievement Award, which was a big honor for her, and she was quite surprised to actually have received it. And we talk about how early in Hilary's career, what it was like being a female engineer in a male-dominated industry. And this is back when, there really weren't very many female engineers. I mean, there's more now today, but back when she started, it was pretty much all men in that industry. And we also get into a little bit and have a conversation about imposter syndrome. So here's the clip for that.
The reason you're featured is because you have been nominated by the Calgary Influential Women in Business, the Lifetime Achievement Award winner, which is absolutely amazing.
Congratulations.
So congratulations.
Thank you. My heart goes a little pitter-patter when you say that.
Yeah, just, what a wonderful achievement to begin with, and then to be recognized by women in business for that achievement. I mean, that's got to feel amazing all in itself right there.
Well, it certainly does. It also is a little bit intimidating.
Fair.
I think anybody that has a modicum of imposter syndrome thinks, oh my God, this is not right. And then, really being able to sit back and recognize that people have actually nominated you for this.
Yeah.
And I know myself from having done that with others, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so, the gratitude for being recognized by people that I have so much respect for,
Yeah.
Colleagues, friends,
Yeah.
that part I think took a moment to sink in, and that's where the really profound,
Yeah.
as I say, gratitude
Absolutely.
really
Yeah.
resides.
100%.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned imposter syndrome, because I was in a room with a bunch of executives and senior vice presidents, vice presidents, CEOs, and one of the questions I asked is, because again, one of them was struggling with imposter syndrome, and I said, anybody in this room ever suffered from imposter syndrome? Put up your hand. And of course, 100% of the hands went up. We all suffer from it, right? And so whether you're early in your career or you're more seasoned in your career, it comes up, and we have to realize it's part of being human. Right? And it's normal.
It is, yeah. And sometimes I actually wonder if it's a way of hiding a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, kind of the low expectations, but
Yeah.
high delivery.
Yeah.
I wonder whether sometimes we don't do that to ourselves a little bit.
Now, the next episode I want to share with you is episode 10. He's a friend of mine. We've known each other for many years. David Wallach. He's the CEO of Barclay Street Real Estate here in Calgary. And David talked about how he doesn't hesitate to hire people who are in debt because they're highly motivated. And I thought that was such an interesting comment when he said it. And it really does align with one of the things that I share when I'm in my coaching practice, when I'm doing leadership trainings, which is that when you're hiring people, you have to hire people who have fire in the belly. And David says it so well and explains it on this next clip. So give a listen to David as he shares his thoughts on hiring. So, when you're talking about your veteran brokers and you're talking about your new brokers, they're all in sales, right? Everybody's a salesperson.
Correct.
So how do you motivate them? What's the secret sauce?
I don't know if there is a secret sauce. I think that motivation, I always say, I want to have people that have, drive. I can teach them real estate.
Right.
If you don't have the drive, probably you don't fit my company and our company. And the reason is, don't forget that salespeople, especially in our industry, don't have a base salary. They eat what they kill. So if you don't have the drive to go out and eat what you kill, and you don't have the drive to hunt, I don't think this is for you. So I think their motivation comes from their success. I remember I don't broker any more deals. I refer all my clients to the other brokers.
Right.
But people asked me a few years ago, when is it that you feel good about what you do? I said, I feel good when I get the 2 signatures. The money can come 3 months later. But once I get the deal done, meaning the deal went firm, that's when I'm happy. Those are the guys that work at Barclay Street Real Estate, people that are excited to hit the gong when they close the deal. The deal may, when they get the deal unconditional, the deal may close a month, 2 months, 3 months later, and that's when they'll see the money.
Right.
But that's what drives them, is that win.
The win.
The win. In sales, if you don't win, if you look at compare the Olympics to our industry, how many times in our industry is there silver or bronze medal? None. It's either the gold medal, it's either you
Or
win
zero.
or zero.
Absolutely.
Olympics, you can be number 2, number 3 and be proud of your medal. In our industry, if you're not gold, you're zero.
Yeah, you're not eating that month, right?
Yeah.
So because you're on 100% commission. It's interesting because at Sonic Coaching, when we work with clients, I've always said, hire the people who have fire in their belly, right?
Yeah.
Who are passionate, who are excited, who are hungry.
And they're in debt. They're in debt.
And they have a family.
Get them in debt, yeah. So they have to work to pay the debt.
Well, and family's a big motivator, right? Well, the next episode I'm going to share with you is episode 11. Gentleman's name is Michael Noble. He's the owner of Notable, the steakhouse, which is a recent rebrand, and so he's refreshed that brand. Great steakhouse here in Calgary. He's also the owner of the Nash restaurant. And so one of the things that Michael shared was he talked about the crucial roles that mentors have impacted him, how mentors have impacted him, and also, what he's learned from them. And it's really created his entire business philosophy, including paying it forward, is a big part of his philosophy in business. So here's a short clip from that episode from Michael. So something you said, I tweaked me earlier, and I'm kind of thinking about our listeners who are looking to make that jump or have made that jump into business ownership, right? And same as you, they have a passion and they want to maybe not take orders from everybody else and being able to sort of use their own, uniqueness and their own creativity and all of that, no matter what the industry.
Yeah.
But you mentioned mentors along the way.
Yeah.
As you know, Sonic Coaching, we do coaching, so mentoring, coaching. How important has that been in your success over the years?
I think it's been everything in my
Okay.
success. In fact, I am now a mentor.
Good. That's
I
awesome.
am so proud of this long list of amazing chefs out in the industry, really across the world,
Right.
who have worked beside me in my kitchens over all of these decades. And one of the biggest pieces of advice I give young culinarians that are looking for, how do I become a chef? Find a mentor. Find someone that you can go to, because it's easy to be mentored when everything's going well.
Yes.
It's much harder to go to a mentor when one is troubled.
Mm-hmm.
There were certain crossroads in my career where, I had 3 children and I was making $36,000 a year, and I don't know how we actually did all that, but I felt like I was performing at a level much higher than my compensation grade, and I was pretty discouraged. Like,
Of course.
I was like, well, I went to Bruno Marty one day and I said, Bruno, I think I'm going to just pack it in. I'm going to become a culinary instructor so I can spend some time with my kids.
Right.
While they're growing up, I feel like I'm spending so much time at work, in the kitchens, making things happen, but I'm missing so much at home.
Right.
And you know, he had some really wise things to say to me in that moment, but he also encouraged me to not give up. He said, Michael, keep going. We need great culinarians in this industry, and if all of you become culinary instructors, there won't be anyone working in the restaurants that can teach.
Right.
And that brought me right back to Bernard Weber teaching me how to make sauces, which is something that I've done so many times over the years, just channeling these great mentors of mine. And I really don't know how I could have been as successful without that level of mentorship.
And it sounds like you're paying it forward too.
Oh, without hesitation. I mean, I think that is really the legacy that I want to be known for, is
Right.
not just what I did or what successes that I enjoyed, because they're always fleeting.
Right.
You're only as good as the last meal you put out.
The next episode I want to share with all of you is episode 12. The interview was with Howard C. He's the CEO of Cedar Glen Homes. You know, Howard talks about his leadership journey. I mean, he started in the IT department, worked his way all the way up to the chief executive officer. And he's really open and genuine in this interview. And it was a really, really great interview. And I really want you to hear the clip here about his perspective on why nice guys don't finish last. You know, I'm gonna go to one of my favorite. I call it one of my signature questions. And you're one of those guys that's worked his way up into the top job. And when you look back on your entire career, what's one thing you wish somebody would have told you when you were at the start of the journey? Because I'm sure we've got some listeners who are at the start of their journey, right? And what's that one, maybe even two, but what's that one thing that you wish somebody would have told you, Howard?
I'll change it a bit.
Okay.
I'll share with you what I wish someone didn't tell me.
Okay.
And maybe it was a good thing that this person told me this, because it fueled me. It fueled me for my career. It was, nice guys finish last.
How often have we heard that?
Yeah, I was deemed as a nice guy, and unless I was willing to slam my fist on the table, yell and scream to make people understand what I wanted, I was never going to win. So that fueled my career in the sense that that's not who I wanted to be. And nice guys do finish first.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I'm sure somebody out there needs to hear that right
Yeah.
now. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
The next episode I want to share with all of you from this past year is episode 15. Heather and Michael Culbert. Really, really enjoyed speaking with both of them. They've really been called a power couple in both business and philanthropy here in Calgary. They do sit and they have sat on boards. They've given back to the community. They've seen great leaders and leadership at its finest. And so I want you to listen to this clip here from that interview that I did with Heather and Mike, where they talk about what makes a great leader. You mentioned leadership a little bit. You've both of you have held senior positions in the energy sector. You've served and continue to serve on for-profit, nonprofit boards. In your opinion, what makes a great leader? Mike?
Well, I think the epitome of a great leader that I've really tried to emulate in a lot of cases starts with ethics and having, solid background of, the right beliefs, the beliefs that you're there doing the job. It's not all about you. It's a team event, and really having business ethics where you're doing things on the up and up and moving forward. So I think that when I look at it, you see leaders over years, and you see how people have different styles, and you look and you say, okay, well that worked in this situation, this worked in this situation, and you sort of evolve as you go along to what works for you. As Heather said, okay, you get up and you try it again and,
Right.
and go a different direction. So I think the big thing is really just, following your own or building your own style and determining what works for you. But at the same time, understanding that it's not you that has to do the whole thing. It's the whole team that steps up. And so empowering people and letting people the expertise within their particular discipline, they're the ones that are the experts. Let them lead those aspects.
Yeah, excellent. Anything you want to add from your perspective, Heather?
No, I
That
think
was a great answer.
Mike really captured it well. I would say just surround yourself with smarter people than you. I mean, honestly, like Mike was referring to the expertise piece, but don't be afraid to not know everything, right? As a good, solid leader surrounds himself with people that know more than they do. And your leadership
Yes.
is meant to coordinate those efforts. It's not meant to know all the answers. So, yeah, that would be the only thing.
Another episode that I really enjoyed was episode number 16 with Jeff McKeag. He's the former CEO and the current chairman still of Trimac Transportation. He's also co-owner of the Calgary Flames Hockey Club. And it was a really great conversation that Jeff and I had when he talked about how to grow his own self-awareness. He took Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People program. And we also talk about the book of the same title, which of course is a timeless classic. It's on my shelf here in my library in the office. And so just listen in a little bit about when we talk about, him taking that Dale Carnegie program. My philosophy really is that personal development and professional development are one and the same, right? And so as you, sort of think about, all the different things you've done and books you've read and things you've listened to, what's your favorite self-development book or tool that you'd recommend to our listeners?
Well, I'm not sure it's my favorite, but it's the one I remember off the top of my head. And in addition to my dad, I had a number of other really key mentors in my life. And one was a fellow named Tony Vandenbrink, who was my dad's partner at a point in the evolution of Trimac. And Tony was terrific in lots of different ways. And I learned a lot from him.
Right.
And he, at one point after we had a meeting and I was tasked with coming up with a strategy for the plan forward, and I did a lot of work and came up with a plan and explained it to everyone, and thought I'd done a great job. And he said to me afterwards, so how did you feel about that meeting? And I said, well, pretty good. And I thought everything went pretty well, and there didn't seem to be any pushback on the strategy. And he said, well, I think you probably aren't as self-aware as you need to be, and your communication style was such that you might have generated more resistance as opposed to acceptance. And what I'd encourage you to do is sign up for this course, and it was a Dale Carnegie course.
Okay, yeah, they've been around a long time.
Influence. What was the title of it?
How to win friends and influence people. Yeah.
And he was absolutely right, and that was a great course, and I learned a great deal from it. And I worked at those things a little differently after that.
Episode 20 with Darren Curran is another episode I really wanted to share with all of you. He's the CEO of Bantrell. He was on Calgary's December 2025 cover. I recently spoke with Darren, and Darren's advice really centers on being open to opportunities. He talks about taking courageous steps, seeking diverse experiences, and leading with integrity. And his advice to his younger self, when I asked him that, which of course is a question I ask every one of my interviewees when we sit down and we talk, is he says, say yes more often. And so here's that clip for you to listen to. So talk about your personal experience, because you've got some international experience, and not everybody has that opportunity. So, when that sort of opportunity knocked, how did you make the decision to actually go? And how did it transpire?
That's a great question. Through my career and really through my life, a lot of what I've done is just say yes. And so when an opportunity comes up, be open to it. And maybe don't overthink it, right? And so some of these things that I look back on, I can't say as I really planned it out or I was, that thoughtful, but I just said yes. And that's how, now going into engineering, I grew up farm boy, north of Brooks, Alberta. So I didn't know any engineers growing up. I didn't have any engineers in the family. Now my family's full of them. Friends, of course, a career in this. And one thing I wanted to do, I had a bug to go work overseas. And engineering is one of those professions where it's very portable.
Right.
You can work anywhere. And so that was one of the reasons I took engineering. And I had that bug. And I the job market again was terrible when I came out of engineering. And I was fortunate enough to get a job. I worked out in Regina at a refinery out there at the Co-op refinery. And that was fantastic first experience. Got really hands-on, got to see how stuff worked, build stuff, operating plant. Just such a great place to be a sponge and learn. And then that's when I came back to Bantrell. And I had a roommate who was working with me at the refinery. And he moved back to Calgary. He's from Calgary. And he said, man, Darren, this company is fantastic. It's growing like crazy. There's all these opportunities. Like, you should apply. And so I applied and I interviewed and I was offered a role and I just said yes.
Well, thanks everyone. As I mentioned, it's been just an amazing year with some great interviews. I'm really grateful and thankful to all the guests that decided to join me and talk about their businesses and their journeys, some of their struggles, the mistakes and what they've learned from those mistakes, the advice they would give to their younger selves, and even what book or, what program they would recommend, in terms of continuously learning and moving forward in your own leadership and business journeys. And so it's been a phenomenal year. So, wishing all of you a prosperous, hopefully a great ending to 2025, and looking forward to interviewing some fantastic guests again in 2026. I'm your host, Oliver Basner. You've been listening to the wrap-up episode for the year of the Business in Calgary podcast, powered by Sonic Coaching.